I want America to be salvageable, and I think that it is. But I don't know what kind of change is required in order to get us off the path that we're on now. And is that change, does Bitcoin fix this? Is it an incentives problem? Is that change, does it have to start, at a local level? Is it possible to make those changes from the top down? Are we just fucked? Discuss.
I think the two things, one of the things that we were talking about earlier was, is this coordinated against Bitcoin or is it not? Are they trying to shut off the exits? Are they trying to, destroy peer-to-peer currency? Like all of that stuff, I think is directly correlated to the crisis that's happening at the southern border, the lax, policies on crime in liberal cities and in sanctuary cities and in blue states. It's the most obvious thing in the world to me that like if you want to put in a totalitarian, dictatorship or authoritarian regime or oligopoly, you need to have the people request it. And what's the easiest way to get the people to request it is to terrorize them into requesting it, right? I mean, we've seen this playbook plays out over and over and over again. And so it's an attempt to consolidate power. They want to terrorize us into sort of obedience and pacification and requesting safety. Please save us from the problem that you created. I mean, to me, like all of those things are anti-American. A lot of the leadership we have in America is anti-American. A lot of the things that people think and believe in popular sentiments are anti-American. All of that is true, but we're not fucked. And here's why we're not fucked, is because we still have the world's best technologists, best and brightest minds. We are still building the future, even if the people who, are running the country right now are intent on destroying that future. We're building it anyway, okay? And we don't give a fuck. And so we're building these parallel systems. We're trying to enshrine America for another 100 years. We need to clean up the corruption. I mean, the corruption is rampant. Like nobody wants that. Like there's a ETF now that's tracking Nancy Pelosi's trades. It's outperforming the S&P 500. So you don't even have to track Nancy's trades yourself. You can buy this ETF. I think it's called NANC. It tracks Nancy and Paul Pelosi's trades, and it outperforms the broad market index funds. Are you fucking kidding me? This is the kleptocracy that we're living in, and everybody can see it. It's so obvious to everybody. Everybody knows it, and yet we all just sit there and we're in like some sort of malaise where it's just like this nihilism is washing over us. We're all like, I don't know, man. Everything's fucked, man. Blah, 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 man. Whatever, dude. And I don't feel that way. I feel optimistic because we own the future. Owning Bitcoin means we own the fucking future, okay? And we have a seat at the table, and we're going to get to say how things operate. And the way I want things to operate is the way the fucking U.S. Constitution says they should fucking operate. The end.
So, Walker, on my side, I agree with everything that Hodl just said. This is the only thing that I would, I guess this is a pushback. When I think about moving forward, I think of like the United States and like all the people inside there, all the companies inside of it. They're almost like neurons in a brain, and the way that they organize themselves and the way that they, the incentives that they've been wired to perform in the economy. When I think about what these neurons have been wired to do over the past 80 years, they have been incentivized to play this game in a way that you get as close to the money printer as possible. You get levered up as much as you possibly can. You leverage these political appointees that you then put into place. You vote, if you're in defense, you vote money into your district by, building F-35s and all these types of things. This is the game that everybody's accustomed to. This is the game that they know. It's akin to a person using heroin nonstop for a decade straight and then saying, we're going to get them off the heroin, and then they're going to just do this. They're going to play this free and open market thing where the fittest survive and the ones that are the weakest just kind of die, and there's no political favors or any of this kind of stuff, right? For me, and when I'm looking at whoever the strongest heroin addict was in this old legacy system from a country standpoint, that country is going to probably struggle the most in the transition, just because of how their quote unquote brain has been wired, how the economy has been wired to function, and the incentives inside of that country have been wired to function. So Another thing that I would say is if you were a country that has been dealing with double digit inflation, you become a master of controlling your expenses and trying your darndest to be able to create value. And so once that inflation subsides, it's almost like you were out there running around the track and you had like all these extra weights on you, and then all of a sudden the weights start coming off and you can really rip around the track. But for people that have had the luxury of not dealing with, what was the inflation here in the US for the most part, relative to, and this is very relative to all these other countries in the world. Well, we were basically in the lap of luxury. We weren't running around the track with like these weight suits on us. And so I think that when you combine these things and you kind of think of it in these terms, who should be the countries that struggle the most with the transition? Just looking at it very objectively. And as an American and as a person that had served in the military in this country, let me tell you, nobody wants to see the United States recover from all this more than me. But I can also look at things very objectively and look at them in terms of like how nature operates. And I'm saying the U.S. should probably be, it should probably be pretty dang hard on them. It should be really hard on Europe. Like some of these really advanced economies that are completely wired to operate in this old legacy system and the incentives of it are going to probably struggle immensely with the transition. One other thing that I would tell you is the countries that have a lot of physical infrastructure for this legacy system, that transition to this new system where efficiency is going to be king. The countries that are building that infrastructure for the very first time from the ground up and can do it in a very thoughtful and efficient kind of way and not re-engineer stuff that was already there and repurpose it, I think are going to actually have a huge advantage from a trend standpoint going into the coming 10 to 25 years from now. So, and anyway, yeah. But yeah, go ahead, Paul.
No,
sorry, I'm talking.
I totally agree that America is not going to be nimble in this transition, and we are going to be as slow and lumbering, and it is going to be as painful as Preston described. I believe all of those things are true, but I also believe in this sort of American, ethos that like America will try all the wrong things before it finally does the right thing, and that's just the chaos of our air quotes democracy. And like I think we're going through some sort of a big cyclical change in American life that is very similar to the cyclical change we went through at the turn of the Industrial Revolution, and now we have a digital revolution that's happening. And the American institutions that accept that digital revolution is happening are going to do well. So if you look at like the East Coast versus the West Coast, this is something like Balaji Srinivasan's talked about. The East Coast is just trying to consolidate their power, hang on to their little fiefdom. They're lashing out at anybody who doesn't agree with them or who points out where they're hypocritical. And then the West Coast is just like, all right, I don't even want to participate in that game. I don't even play that game. We are going to build in cyberspace, and we're not fully aligned with the tech elites on the West Coast. In fact, many of them are shitcoiners, so we're like actually diametrically opposed to some of them. But spiritually, we are much more on their side than we are on the entrenched East Coast side. And so, to me, as somebody who is looking forward optimistically, I side with the new pioneers who are going to the new frontier, and the new frontier is cyberspace. And basically it's like, okay, take the El Salvador example, right? El Salvador is going to be one of these nimble players in the digital economy, and they have a chance to be like a South American Estonia, or even better, like a South American Monaco or something like that. And I believe that's going to happen for them. But El Salvador is not America. Let's not conflate the two things. It can never be America. It's not protected by the oceans. It doesn't have the Mississippi. It doesn't have the nuclear arsenal. It's not us. We're a totally different thing. And yeah, we're like slow and lumbering, and moving America is like moving an aircraft carrier. All those things are true, but we still have some of the best, most freedom-minded people in the world here. And a lot of these people who hate America and who are trying to run our society into the ground, frankly, they're 85 years old. What do they got? They can do this for 6 more years, maybe with the best drugs on earth. I mean, come on, their time is going to run out. I look around and all my peers, all the young smart people, they're all building towards the libertarian, Bitcoin future. Some of them are building towards like the AI communist future, but hopefully that we'll have to see. Those two things are going to play out. I think that's the battle of the 21st century.